Hello, and welcome to an important topic, workplace violence prevention. We're going to cover steps for employees to take to prevent and respond to tense and potentially volatile situations. This important information is generic in nature, and you'll need to talk to your HR person or your safety director in order to learn about specifics of your plan in case of emergency or violence in the workplace. According to the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, workplace violence is the second leading cause of fatal occupational injuries in the United States, affecting nearly 2 million American workers annually. Other alarming statistics are that there were 761 workplace deaths caused by violence in the workplace in 2021 in the United States, and 2.6 million non-fatal workplace injuries. 85% of workplace violence deaths were due to robbery, and workplace assaults resulted in 20,050 injuries and 392 fatalities. Workplace violence causes American businesses to lose, on average, $250 to $330 billion every year. Sadly, workplace violence has become too prevalent in American society. What is workplace violence? According to Cal-OSHA, it's any act of violence or threat of violence that occurs in a place of employment. Workplace violence includes, but isn't limited to, the following: the threat or use of physical force against an employee that results in or has a high likelihood of resulting in injury, psychological trauma, or stress, regardless of whether the employee sustains an injury. Or an incident involving a threat or use of a firearm or other dangerous weapon, including the use of common objects such as weapons, regardless of whether the employee sustains an injury or not. Cal-OSHA puts workplace violence incidences into 4 different types. Number 1, workplace violence is committed by a person who has no legitimate business at the worksite and includes violent acts by anyone who enters the workplace or approaches employees with the intent to commit a crime. Type 2 is that workplace violence is directed at employees by customers, clients, patients, students, inmates, or visitors. Type 3 is workplace violence against an employee by a present or former employee, supervisor, or manager. And type 4, which is workplace violence that's committed in the workplace by a person who does not work there, but has or is known to have had a personal relationship with an employee. Workplace violence does not include lawful acts of self-defense or defense of others. And workplace practice controls are procedures and rules which are used to effectively reduce workplace violence hazards. And that's precisely why we're doing this training. The first reason is to build your skills and confidence in your abilities to effectively respond to a potentially violent situation, so you know what to do and you're confident in your abilities and your knowledge. Another reason we're doing this training is for safety and health purposes, so you know what the emergency response protocols are, you understand the employer's commitment to safety and health in the workplace, and you are clear on the steps to take in order to prevent and respond to violence in the workplace. And thirdly, it's important to recognize that employers have the duty to provide a workplace that is free of any recognized hazard under the Occupational Safety and Health Act's General Duty Clause. Additionally, some states have mandated training. For example, California, with SB 553, mandates training annually on workplace violence prevention. This training will have 3 different sections. Part 1 is prevention, ensuring you know the steps you can take to de-escalate or diffuse a tense situation. Part 2 is response, what to say and what to do when you're confronted by a situation. And Part 3 focuses on steps organizations need to take in order to develop plans and protocols for emergency responsiveness, training for employees on your policy and plan, as well as documentation on a violent incident and conducting an investigation. This training will provide general guidelines for employers, but some of this information has to be presented offline by your employer because it's so specific. Part 1, prevention, de-escalating conflict and preventing volatile situations. In handling any kind of conflict, whether it's an issue, a volatile situation, an angry customer or coworker, you really have 5 different options, ranging from passive to aggressive. In terms of passive, you can avoid the situation by ignoring, avoiding, walking away, or sweeping the issue under the rug. This is an important strategy in case the situation is getting too emotional or the person's behavior is becoming volatile. You may want to accommodate the person by just justifying or accepting their behavior. Obviously, this does nothing to resolve the situation, but being accommodated might help the person from escalating their emotion any further. Compromising by giving in or giving up can have a short-term effect of resolving the situation and getting you out of a potentially volatile situation. However, again, the situation is not resolved. Where we would want to be is assertive but not aggressive in collaborating with the person and deriving a mutually beneficial solution. But if the person is emotionally volatile and not willing to listen to you, this technique will not work. The most aggressive response is forcing, by blaming the person, forcing them into a decision, pushing them, or accelerating the anger and frustration in the situation rather than diffusing it. Clearly, being aggressive or forcing a person to resolve the situation by raising your voice and acting aggressively will not work in a volatile situation. If you find yourself able to talk to the person to diffuse the conflict, some of the things you might want to say are to uncover hidden agendas, such as, what's the issue? What are your objectives? Trying to look for common ground by saying, this is important to everyone. Or get them involved in a brainstorming session to come up with possible solutions, like, what can we do to resolve this issue? Here's an idea I have. What do you think will work? Or to try to systematically evaluate the ideas and select the best idea, and hopefully get agreement on the solution that you came up with. If you're able to talk to the person and diffuse the emotion and diffuse the conflict that's building up, this can often lead to a good resolution of the situation. However, if emotion is high, their logic is going to be low, and you'll be unable to work through the issue. Identification of warning signs, triggers, behavioral clues, and risk factors is important in knowing when a possible volatile event might occur. Workplace violence can occur at any time, but here are some risk factors which might increase the opportunities for violence in the workplace. Working alone, or working late at night or early morning, working with money and dealing with the public, delivering passengers or goods, working in high crime areas, working with people who have a history of violence, working in community settings, and having a mobile workplace, such as a police car or taxi. That information was provided by the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health. Really, anything could trigger a violent workplace event. Some examples might be job layoffs or threats of job elimination, pressure for increased productivity, psychological instability, lack of individual responsibility, an unstable economy, non-job-related personal problems, unresolved workplace conflict, or domestic disputes and spousal abuse. A volatile person might give you some warning signs ahead of time, or they may not. Some examples of behavioral warning signs might be intimidating behavior towards others, a fascination with weapons or violent acts, an inability to accept constructive criticism of job performance, exhibiting moral righteousness and believing the employer is not following laws, rules, or procedures, displaying unwarranted anger, displaying violence towards inanimate objects, demonstrating paranoid behavior, unreasonably holding a grudge, usually against a supervisor, extreme mood swings, or extreme family, financial, or other personal problems, stealing or sabotaging equipment, displaying an obsession about the job and not usually having outside interests, or drug or alcohol use, especially an increased use. Those are some of the warning signs you'll want to be aware of. On the other hand, some of these warning signs may not lead to violent outbursts. It's important to do what you can to de-escalate a tense situation. It's going to be up to you to determine the threat level that's presented in front of you and take actions that are appropriate. How you respond is going to depend on the severity of the issue at hand. Let's talk about the 3 different levels and their warning signs. Warning signs for level 1 would be intimidation or bullying, discourteous behavior or disrespectful behavior, someone who's uncooperative and becomes verbally abusive. Threat level 2 may be an escalation of these behaviors. They may become argumentative with customers or the general public. They may refuse to obey policies and procedures. They may sabotage equipment or steal property, or verbalize the wishes to hurt people, send threatening notes, and see themselves as a victim, blaming others for the situation at hand. Threat level 3 is a further escalation and usually results in a situation requiring an emergency response. There could be statements that indicate suicidal tendencies. There could be physical fights, destruction of property, a display of extreme rage, or the utilization of weapons to harm others. Here's a graphic that depicts the escalation cycle, the patterns that occur before, during, and after an episode. Initially, things may be calm. A triggering event might occur, resulting in agitation that grows and accelerates, and then there's a peak event that occurs. After which, there's a de-escalation period, and then the post-crisis depletion and recovery. The key is to attempt to diffuse some of the agitation before it builds to a peak and triggers a volatile or violent event. Your response can make the difference between diffusing the stress or making it worse. That concludes part 1 of the Workplace Violence Prevention Training Program. The second part covers how to respond to a situation, safe and effective ways to protect employees and diffuse tense situations. Part 3 is on your organization's plans, and this will happen offline, where the HR director or safety director covers employee communication, emergency response protocols, and reporting. Eye-to-Eye Workplace provides a complete program for workplace violence prevention. Our online training includes a test as well as case studies, and participants are offered a certificate of completion. Employers receive all the training records consolidated for easy tracking and monitoring. We also provide a sample written plan with a record retention chart and incident reporting forms. Visit eye2eyeworkplace.com today.